So you can call this extra credit. This information is interesting and helps fill this picture out before we actually get into the alphabet, the keys, the chords, and the intervals. There's a thing called just intonation. If we picked just used the A note as our fundamental and took exactly a ratio of 2 wavelengths to 3 wavelengths, we would come up with an E note that would be slightly different than this. That's called just intonation, and it creates beautiful melodies. The problem is, when you transcribe into a different key, the melody will sound different. So to fix that problem, the 12-note scale was divided up into 12 perfectly equal parts between the fundamental and its octave. So the 12 equally spaced note scale, our chromatic scale as we know it today, is called equal temperament. So I can do that. I can start anywhere. I can start on any note and do that same thing, and it'll sound exactly the same because of equal temperament. The notes are a little bit off from the simple ratios, but the most important ones, the perfect fourth and the perfect fifth, are very, very close, and most people couldn't tell with their ear, and those are the most important ones, so it's the best compromise. There's more stuff behind why we have 12 notes. We could have 19, we could have 24, and still have our divisions falling close to our important tones, the 6 tones we've talked about. But the problem is that the more notes that you have, the more difficult it is to create musical instruments, and way more difficult to learn and play the musical instruments. All right, this fairly brief and relatively simple explanation helps us to understand what an octave is, why it's the basis of music theory, also explains why we have 7 unique notes per key and where the major scale formula came from. It ties this together with the 12 notes of the chromatic scale. The cherry on top is that we even understand why these 12 notes are adjusted to create exactly equal intervals. This information will allow us to build our keys and chords and analyze melody and harmony without undue confusion. Now, before we end this extra credit video, I just want to make some practical application of this information. So going back to the A note, remember that the overtones included the C sharp and the E. And many of you will realize that that is an A major scale, or an A major chord. There's the A, there's the E, there's the C sharp. There's the octave, and there's the octave of the E. So no wonder the major chord of the root note gives us such a stable sound, because the the third and the fifth of the chord are actually in the fundamental. So again, we'll cover this more. We can also identify the octaves on the guitar fretboard. Okay, that is an E2. Octaves start from C to B. The first octave is C0 to B0. Human hearing, however, starts around F0. This is the E note in the second octave. Actually, it's E2. It's the it's the third octave. It's the third octave. 0. They start at 0. I'm sorry. Third octave. So E2, A2, D3. Our lowest D is in the fourth octave. G3, B3, E4. This would be C5 and would be the first note of the sixth octave. So we actually have the sixth octave here all the way to the B. Nope, that's the A. So I don't get up to the C on this guitar. This guitar only has 18 frets. I don't quite make it to the seventh octave. So middle C, that's middle C on a piano. That's a C4. That's a C in the fifth octave. All right, so disclaimer, the information I have given is not in historical sequence. There is so much information about the evolution of music theory, and I've looked at a lot of it to put together this information, but I was only interested in what could help us understand our music and music theory better. I didn't want to get into the esoteric stuff. I've looked at some of it. My interest starts waning when I am learning about mathematicians making arguments about the minor, the relative minor being a second root based on undertones. Very complicated math based on something that doesn't exist in nature. There's no such thing as an undertone. But mathematically, you can make a case that A is another root of the key that has no sharps or flats. We'll get into that later.